Chalk your peanut with toothpaste, killing her painfully.
Suki, what the hell? Hello, imperfect person. I am also an imperfect person who is a slave to her feline friends. I have cats. Did you notice? Cats are the internet's greatest friend, my saviors, and to some degree, I think I'm their savior as well. But in terms of sustainability, they're kind of a problem. Beyond their predatory nature, there's the standard impacts that come along with having pets, like their food, their waste, their litter, feces, all of which have highly impactful options to deal with them, as well as less impactful options. As a person who is imperfectly exploring ways that she can reduce her impact on the planet, the people around her, and on herself, I have explored, failed, and explored again different ways that owning cats can be more sustainable and less impactful on the world around me. So I thought that I would start a series, and this series is going to focus on what it's like to own a cat and try to live sustainably, and different ways that I've tried, failed, things that have worked, just generally things that we can all do if we're cat owners or looking to be cat owners to try to reduce not only their impact but our impact of owning an animal. In this week's episode, I'm going to be focusing on the implications of buying from breeders, as well as the other options that are out there if you are looking to get a cat for the first time or looking to get another cat. Different considerations you should have around adopting or buying from breeders and my reasonings for those things. I think it will get a little bit emotional today. I will be talking a little bit on my experience of buying from a breeder and having to deal with a cat who was not very healthy for most of his life. And so I'm ultimately trying to encourage you to avoid that. Hopefully you will gain some pretty good tidbits of information. Much to the dismay of my former self, buying that dogs rule and cats suck, I became a cat owner. I don't think I disliked them that much. I think I was just under the impression we had to decide at some point and that was your personality for the rest of your life. Who friggin' knows? I was roped into getting a feline friend in 2018. I actually wanted a dog, and my partner at the time had never really had a pet, and so our mutual agreement was that we could get a pet as long as it was a cat because he felt that would be easier than owning a dog. I came across this queen in 2018. Once I got the go-ahead that I could adopt a cat, trolled to forums and found Miss Frankie, her name was. I absolutely adored her turquoise blue and green eyes, and when I went to go visit her for the first time, she immediately came straight up to me and snuggled straight into my arms and just wanted to be loved. Suki was found locked in an electrical box at a tip. She was completely emaciated and yet still loved human beings. It's unknown whether she was a domesticated cat before. No one really knows. Suki's original name was Frankie. I called her Suki because it means moon in Japanese. Then there's Calvi, who I adopted in 2021. He's also a rescue. I came across him because he looked like he was a Seal Point Siamese or Burmese or something like that, but was listed just as a domestic short hair. I came across Calvi not long after our previous cat passed away. I felt that Suki just kind of needed another friend. She needed someone to bother her. She couldn't get too comfortable. I'm gonna tell you this way so you can see Suki-chan. Calvi was rescued from an industrial area, and I think he was rescued quite a while after sort of that domestication period, and so he's very scared of things moving, people being around, people standing up, right up until you actually sit down. Once you're sitting down, he is all over you. He's the sweetest boy. He purrs nonstop and just loves a big old cuddle. I called him Calbi because I thought his fur kind of reminded me of LA Galbi that you can get from Korean barbecue. So it means beef short rib, I believe, but that's why he's called Calbi. Now, I absolutely adore my cat, but their lives kind of pose an issue for my attempt at being a little bit more sustainable in my day-to-day. I don't think humans will likely get to a point where having a domesticated animal in their lives is never an option. So instead of living without, I'm going to try to... Hey baby, you want to come up? figure out a way that we can live together with them whilst also reducing our impact. Let's just say maybe you're looking to get a cat for the first time and wanting to sort of weigh up the pros and cons of sustainability in cats, or maybe you've had your cat for ages like I have and you want to reassess how you're living with them and see if you can make it a more sustainable living situation. I got you. We'll go through that today. Do you have anything to say? Let's say you're looking at getting a cat for the first time, or maybe you've had one, haven't had one in a while. The first thing you need to really consider is if you are able to look after that cat. If you can avoid the stress and hassle of getting a pet and being really excited about it and then giving it up relatively soon because you suddenly realize you can't take on that kind of commitment, then going through this thought process hopefully will help you avoid that. Essentially, you need to consider, are you ready? Do you have the emotional capacity for commitment? Do you have the time? Do you have the money that it takes to look after a pet? There's all these different things that you should be considering. If you like to travel a lot, maybe reconsider having a pet. Just to take a pause and think about it again. And if you do come to the conclusion you want, I want a cat, adopt one. I think it's a no-brainer. There are hundreds and thousands of animals going into shelters every day. Adoption is such a good option. It might take a little while longer for you to find the pet that you really want, but just stick at it. You'll eventually find a sweet little bean like I did that you adore, and they are so happy to be able to be given a second chance at having a normal life. Now, I know that there is the temptation of wanting to go to a registered breeder and get a specific type of breed. Breeding is a really scary sport. Because of human greed and consumption, breeding has kind of turned into a business. And whilst there are good breeders out there who care for their animals and genuinely make sure that they are being looked after, there are also ones that don't. And this often results in, if you're seeking a pedigree animal, the gene pool gets reduced and reduced and reduced and reduced until there's all these deformities, desirable traits that are really unhealthy for the animals being prioritized in the breeding process, and then the animals having a really low quality of life because we as humans have decided to breed that in. So going to a breeder can be a double-edged sword. You can get a really well-bred, healthy and happy animal, but you can also get an animal who hasn't been considered since it started its life, and unfortunately its life is probably not going to be as high quality as it should be. Now, I was a sucker for this. When munchkins were really all the rage all over the internet back in 2018, I was obsessed. I had just gotten Suki and was in love with the idea of actually getting another cat so that she had someone to hang out with when we went home. I started looking up munchkin breeders in Brisbane. I eventually found someone on Facebook recommended on a munchkin's Facebook page, and she had come into some ill health and so was getting rid of her recent litter for a slightly discounted price. Let me zoom in a little. Now, she was a little difficult to deal with because of her health issues. She was very hard to contact. I often found her a little bit standoffish, wouldn't answer all of my questions. I've sort of looked at all the photos, and she was trying to sell me this one particular female munchkin, and I was set on this. He looked almost like the runt of the litter. He was a little boy, and I said I really liked the ginger one. Informed that it was not ginger, it was cream. She lived about 2 hours out of Brisbane. Rather than us going all the way out there to go and check them out, she said that she'd just send more photos and, keep us updated, which probably on my part wasn't the best idea, but that's what we did at the time. And she was a registered breeder, so I had no reason to believe that she wasn't looking after her pets well, and her pets were unhealthy for any reason. From what I remember, she said that no one really wanted him and she was struggling to sell him, so he was selling for like $600 to $700 instead of the $900 she was selling all her others for. I was pretty stoked. We agreed to the transaction. I paid her a deposit, and she said that she could drop this cat off at the local vet that was about an hour and a half out of Brisbane. And so she said that she'd drop it off, he'd have his final checks as an 8-week-old, and then we could pick him up instead of her coming back to pick him up. So we'd never met her. Well, we thought, you know what, if he's going to a vet, the vet will let us know if there's anything wrong. That sounds like a pretty legit process. This sounds fine. So we drove all the way out there. We picked him up and took him back home, and absolutely in love with this short-legged little ginger cat, just to piss off a few more breeding people. Over the next few months, we started seeing Suki's health decline quite quickly, as well as ours, which was kind of weird. We started noticing that we were getting ringworm, and Suki started getting a lot of black gunk in her ears, and she was scratching a lot and shaking her head. Our poor little short-legged boy, who we'd now called Naga, and Naga means dragon, it's a dragon spirit in sort of Malay culture. Naga kind of always looked a little bit dirty, and he never meowed. He was very quiet. We just kind of assumed, oh, like maybe just he was with like a lot of cats and stuff. So yeah, we just kind of thought he needs to have his revolution regularly and it would eventually clear up. Over time, we realized that his problems were not going away with just sort of the thing on the back of his neck. So I quickly took him to a vet, and I found out he had ringworm, he had ear mite infestation and a really bad ear infection. He had general dermatitis, which was creating scabs under his skin, and the ear infection had caused an infection in his throat, which had stopped him from meowing. After many vet visits and eventually washing my cats with antifungal shampoo for nearly 2 to 3 months, washing them with vinegar, spraying down all their bedding all the time, applying coconut oil to their ears, it started to clear up and their health generally started coming back. Naga's scabs started clearing out. You could see the ringworm was going. His coat was looking healthier. They both started losing all the gunk in their ears, and their ears were looking cleaner. So we were super excited because, like, hell yeah, the cats were healthy again. And once he'd sort of like regained his health, he started squeaking and meowing, and he had the sweetest little teeny tiny little voice. And thankfully we've almost rescued him from that horrible location. But I definitely did report that breeder. Not that she exists anymore. I hope she's not super unwell, but you know, the way that cat was given to us for $600 was pretty appalling. So I reported her to the RSPCA. Fast forward to 2021, we'd moved back to Perth in 2020, and I noticed that Naga had started looking really unhealthy again. His coat was very dull. He was eating, but he wasn't putting on any weight, and he was actually losing weight pretty rapidly. I noticed all of a sudden that he was looking almost like skin and bone, and I panicked and took him to the vet, and we got some bloods done. I don't think anyone should ever have to take a call about a 3-year-old pet that they paid a significant amount of money for from a registered breeder, that they have to make the decision whether or not the cat needs to be put down because they have feline cancer and have likely had it since they were born. Our option was to spend thousands of dollars of uncovered treatment that was not even likely to work, or put him out of his misery. I couldn't see any other option because we didn't have the money, and we'd only just gotten fresh pet insurance since moving back to Perth, and so they weren't going to cover anything. And so we unfortunately had to put our little Naga down. And biggest thing for me was that, you know, we paid $600 for what was essentially a broken cat, and the vet, when they let us know about the cancer, he said likely all his litter mates would have had it as well. And so we wonder what that breeder knew that we didn't, and she didn't tell us. To go to a rescue and pay $50 for a beautiful cat who's a perfect bill of health. I can never comprehend why anyone would go to breeders when you could get a perfectly beautiful cat by adopting. just adopt, save a life, make them happy. There's also an argument that if you are going to commit to an animal, you might want a really specific breed for specific reasons. Then I just say do as much research as you can, meet the breeder, go to the place that they breed their pet, build a relationship with them, look up reviews, speak to people who own their pets, see if there's any issues with them. But if you can, just avoid breeding. It's not fair. I hope you were able to take something away from today. Use my stories and my information as something to take into consideration if you are going through this process. I do not ever expect anybody to fully take all of my advice and follow everything to a T, because everybody's got their own journey, and what's worked for me might not work for you. Being imperfectly sustainable is so much better than, you know, only a few people actually achieving perfect sustainability. So do what's right for you. Take into consideration all the different options that are out there, and if you're truly looking to be a little bit more sustainable and you're thinking of buying a cat, then look into adopting. Look into, you know, opportunities to give animals that are already in this world a second chance to enjoy life and be happy, because they deserve it as much as we do, especially if humans have already failed them once. And on that note, I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you next week for episode 2. We'll be touching a little bit more on sort of living with your cat and whether indoor or outdoor is better or worse, and so the general sort of living situation with a cat and different ways that you can reduce your impact or adjust your living situation to reduce your cat's impact as well on the planet around you, the people around you, and on yourself too. Thank you again for watching. I will see you next week, and have a really good day. Bye.